Ladies and gentlemen, was Rahul Gandhi plain speaking or politicking? Amid a barrage of allegations in a fiery speech as a leader of opposition in the parliament, Rahul Gandhi today said, "People talk about artificial intelligence, but it's important to understand that AI on its own is absolutely meaningless because AI operates on top of data." In China, he said the consumption of data is owned by their own country. In India, companies like Google, Facebook, Instagram, X, they own our consumption data. So if India wants to talk about AI, it has to first answer the question, what data is going to power that AI? Mr. Gandhi said, stressing for the need for an indigenous database source that can feed artificial intelligence, alleging neither does India have production data, which according to him is owned by China. Neither does India have consumption data, which is owned, according to him, by the United States. First, let's listen in to what Rahul Gandhi has said.
AI on its own is absolutely meaningless because AI operates on top of data. Without data, AI means nothing. And if we look at data today, there is one thing which is very clear. Every single piece of data that comes out of the production system in the world, the data that was used to make this phone, the data that is used to make electric cars, the data that is used to make basically all electronics on the planet today is owned by China. And the consumption data is owned by the United States. China has at least a 10-year lead on India in this space. China has been working on batteries, robots, motors, optics for the last 10 years, and we are behind.
Well, last year in May, Intel's Vice President and Managing Director for the India, Santosh Vishwanathan, had spoken to First Post. And he had said, India accounts for 20% of all the data that is generated in the world, which, by the way, is a big number when you look at the race for AI. But he also warned that we barely have 2% of the world's data centers to store and process it all. So what does this mean? According to him, this leaves Indian businesses no choice but to store their data in the cloud, which are often stored on servers and data centers that are located outside India's sovereign borders. But does this mean India's data sovereignty is breached? In a battle of AI-led data wars, globally, according to International Trade Administration, US is ranked first. China comes second in terms of market valuation and UK is third. But remember, with China's DeepSeek, the global gaze and concerns have peaked, especially around state access to data collected. DeepSeek has shown that it might be possible for China to make AI cheaper and more accessible for everyone, not only making it a giant in terms of technology and its use, a huge rival to US, and of course China and US, their rivalry is huge, massive when it comes to AI and tech, apart from the economies as well. But amid one big question, that why does a country of techies, which is India, not able to create a homegrown DeepSeek or Google? While that's one question, we are tonight also looking and attempting a fact check on really, in the battle of wars for data, is your data really being compromised? Remember, India has a proposed digital personal data protection law. It is under draft. Public responses are still being sought. They're going to be sought till February 18th, and that's why it's very important for you to get up there and give your response. It enables users to give, manage, withdraw consent. Data keepers, or fiduciaries as they are known as, must adopt robust security measures, which also include data encryption and breach detection. Data keepers must delete personal data after 3 years of inactivity, so that does mean they have access to personal data, which of course you give consent to. And localized storage of specific data categories is hugely important. Now, this localized storage is one big challenge before India. Remember, this budget, the 2025 budget itself, has given a huge amount of funding when it comes to centers of excellence for education and research on AI. But is that enough in a race that's literally seeing a war of sorts? I'm being joined at this point by Pavan Duggal, who is a cyber security expert, Sri Parthasarathy, who's a partner and leader at Forbes Mazars, as well as Manish Bariyar, who's a political analyst, and Sujata Paul, who's a spokesperson for Congress. Very good evening. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. Well, let me just start straight with the question and take it directly to our experts at this point. Pavan Duggal and Sri Parthasarathy, it's over to both of you. First, I'm going to ask you a very, very simple question, and that's what I started today with. Is Rahul Gandhi doing a plain speak, or is he politicking? Between the whole global wars that's being waged, where data seems to be taking the epicenter of sorts, do you see India losing out in the battle for data for a lot of reasons? Pavan Duggal, do you want to take it first?
Well, I believe India has not put its house in order in terms of its thought leadership on data sovereignty. It is thanks only to the Reserve Bank of India that because of its doggedness, it insisted that the financial data of Indians has to be within India, and so our financial data is in India. But the problem is the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 did a complete U-turn on data localization and said we as Indians are happy to send our data outside, provided the target jurisdiction has same kind of security measures as given under our DPDP Act. It's only with now the draft DPDP rules 2025, which are under public comment, that there's a particular provision which is saying that the government can appoint a committee, and if the committee decides that a particular personal data has to be within India, only that data will be within India, otherwise not. India has to quickly realize that we are lost in the woods vis-a-vis our entire conceptualization and doctrine on data sovereignty. In fact, we are the most populous nation in the world. We are generating humongous volumes of data that no other nation is generating in the world. In a scenario like this, if India is going to have control over its data, that's going to not only enhance its data sovereignty, but ultimately will also contribute in the direction of protection, preservation, and proper enhancement of the sovereignty, security, and integrity of India. So I think the time has come where India has to call the shots. India has to say, look, I've got the world's biggest market. You want to come in, please come in, give appropriate respect to Indian data, have it resident in India so that the Indian economy can boom, so that the Indian jobs can come in. Unfortunately, today, Indian data is going to various jurisdictions. It's getting accessed by different agencies, and our sovereignty, security, and integrity of the nation is itself under attack. So the quicker we start focusing in this direction and start flexing our muscles, that the Indian data has to be within India, and this Indian data is going to empower the Indian nation, the Indian growth, the Indian government, and the Indian sovereignty. If we walk in that direction, then to a large extent, we could potentially be trying to reduce any kind of losses. Otherwise, we will continue to be a bleeding data economy whose data is going outside the country and who will not at all gain at all by this constant bleeding of data, considering the fact that Indians are already undergoing a new revolution. This is the great Indian vomiting revolution, where Indians are vomiting data about their personal, professional, social lives on the internet without thinking of the legal ramifications or the privacy of the same. And the more we allow this personal data to go outside India, the more illusionary, the more evaporational effect we give to the fundamental right to privacy, which has been declared as a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution of India.
So, Mr. Pavan Duggal, you are essentially saying what Rahul Gandhi has done is a plain speak. He's not politicking. He's done a plain speak. He's stated the truth. That's essentially largely what you're talking in terms of what you've said. In fact, you've gone very strong. You've said India is bleeding data. You've said India is vomiting data. Shri Parthasarthi, do you agree with what you've heard?
When it comes to technology, technology is moving at a very rapid pace. And I think world over, when you really look at it, governing laws are always playing catch up. Whether you look at India, whether you look at the US, whether you look at Europe and other things, I would say there's always a catch up game that is happening because law and regulations cannot really keep pace with at the pace that technology is moving. And I would say I would equate that to be a fast moving train, actually a bullet train that is basically moving. And actually, law takes its own time. And I think there are challenges. And in a vast country like ours, I think it does take challenge to basically bring a lot of these particular things in terms of public consultation and also taking it through the right throws, right? But at the same time, I think to look at some of these particular aspects of what needs to be done, whether it's in terms of data protection, whether it's in terms of cybersecurity, whether it's in terms of I think it's important to put some of these particular guardrails upfront as to what can be done, what cannot be done. The law may take a little time to basically catch up, but at least some of those particular control mechanisms and parameters need to be put in place. And I think over a period of time, if I look at what the government has been doing, I think they are essentially having significant public consultations in terms of data privacy. Yes, it can move faster, yeah. But however, essentially public consultations are logically almost concluded. AI ethics and bias kind of panels are basically discussing a lot of these particular areas. So when I look at it, there are a variety of different things that are going on, but the speed at which they're going on possibly can be accelerated. Plus, essentially, as Mr. Pavan Duggal said, RBI guidelines protect financial data. While DPDPA may not be currently in place, but I think organizations are already sort of engaging significantly in terms of implementing DPDPA. Yeah, there may be a challenge
No,
in
Mr.
terms of the
Parthasarthi,
interpretation of
here's
both.
my question. Here's my question. So if you are saying it's a bullet train, that's the word that you've used, and countries are playing catch up, that doesn't seem to be the countries that are really literally waging a cold war. We're talking about US, we're talking about China. Look at what China has landed up doing with DeepSeek. I'm not saying that that's where the future is, that's what India needs to be doing. But I mean, yes, even they are playing catch up with the laws, if it were. There's also reviews. There are also new laws which are coming in, but they're a very different pedestal for that matter. Now, India, do you see India at least being aggressive at that front? Or do you see India completely on the back foot? Because you are playing catch up with the laws, but are you even being aggressive in that war for data? The two are two different things.
Worldwide, look at it this way. I think it is not so much as just the government's responsibility to accelerate in terms of some of these particular aspects of innovation. I think while government can possibly provide a platform and possibly do a lot of things and provide those particular acts, I think it's a private enterprise which needs to basically accelerate in that particular area. And while, yeah, I agree that China and others may have come up with some of these things, but in the past, look at telecom, right? What happened with telecom? Everybody was accelerating in telecom, and we took a significant leap when it came to telecom by going into wireless. Take UPI. If you take world over in terms of some of these particular technologies, while globally people have been implementing some of these and going on, India has caught up on that, even in terms of space, right? Which is where it is. So I think we need to give credit to where it is. I agree that some of these things will take their particular pace, but at the same time, it is not that you always need to be at the leading edge of everything. You don't need to be the first pioneer or the early adopter. You can also wait and watch and then basically make the best use of it and build out something.
I think wait and watch. It's been a long time since this battle has gone on, but that's for a country to decide whether they want to wait and watch and move on. That's fine if that's the country's policy. But here the question. I mean, let me just get in Pavan Duggal very quickly to respond to you if he agrees on you before I go to my other two panelists. Pavan Duggal, Mr. Parthasarthi made a very important point, and that is, it's not the government's responsibility alone. Private players have to come in. Do you agree with that? Because why would private players be bothered about securing my data? Why should private players be bothered about securing your data unless they are pushed to do so?
We have to realize that we are living in a country that's sovereign, socialist, secular democratic republic as per the Constitution of India. Now, if that's the case, there's a primary duty on the sovereign government to make sure that Indian sovereignty does not get compromised. And if this leaking of data is going to let Indian sovereignty get compromised, it could potentially have a bigger ramification on Indian strategic interest. Mr. Parthasarathy is bang on target that it's not only the government that's responsible. But yes, I can definitely say everybody else has to contribute, but the government has to be the lead player, because it's the government who's got the sovereign power to make legislation, which is going to mandate elements of data sovereignty. Currently, we don't have any elements of data sovereignty. Today, people can come inside India, collect Indian data, walk out, and there are no penal consequences. Similarly, Indian data is constantly
huge. That's a
getting
huge
misused,
statement to say.
abused on
Listen,
the dark net.
let's just
On the
stay with
contrary,
that
I'm
point.
saying
Let's just
that,
stay with that
India-
point. Let's just stay with that point. Pavan Duggal, for the point that you have made, it is so important. You are essentially saying that anybody can come in, walk away with the data. Parthasarathy, let me come into you. Spend a minute. Do you agree with him? If you don't, tell us how do you not agree with him?
So first and foremost, Sneha, I'd like to make a correction here. I did not say that it is the responsibility of private enterprise to basically make laws and regulations. I said it's still the government's responsibility to make laws and regulations, provide the right environment, the right ecosystem, the impetus, but essentially private enterprise, public-private partnership to take that particular ecosystem from an innovation perspective and take it to the next level. However, if I look at it today, if we were to look at it, India is not as porous as we think. If India was as porous as we think, then I think we should have had what you call data leaks every day and significant data leaks that are happening. Yes, there are challenges. If you look at AI, and the other day I spoke on in terms of AI and theft of intellectual property and all things, there are challenges on that. But when it comes to financials, when it comes to personal, I think there's a lot of protection being put in place. And I think it's an aspect of what are the laws and regulations, how do they get implemented? What are the enforcement mechanism? What is the penal action? I do agree with Mr. Pavan Duggal that penal action is very important. Enforcement and penal action is very important. And the fines have to be significant for private enterprise as they're implementing it. But at the same time, protecting citizens and their particular rights.
Mr. Pavan Duggal, again 30 seconds to you. Mr. Pavan Duggal, Mr. Parthasarathy just said that it's not as simple as you make it sound. When it comes to data segregation, when it comes to personal data, when it comes to financial data, nobody can just walk over you. So when you say people can come in, take your data and go out, what do you mean by that?
I mean by that to say that this evening when I'm talking, India does not have a data protection law in place. So since there is no legal framework for protecting data, how are you expecting some couple of cosmetic provisions under the IT Act to help you protect your data? Now, under the IT Act, Section 43A gives you the power to seek for unlimited damages. Not a single case of unlimited damages ever been awarded in the history of independent India. So, I mean, let's be more realistic rather than saying, look, we are all hunky-dory. I mean, we have to quickly start realizing that if the pigeon is going to close its eyes to the cat is not going away. The cat is going to eat the pigeon. The quicker we are able to see the existing ground realities, that the Indian data is going on servers in other countries, primarily America, primarily China. Chinese apps have been banned on numerous occasions, but the focus has been to keep on collecting as much data as possible so that China can use the same. So clearly, I think we have to be more realistic. It's good to say, look, we are all safe. But if things were so safe, how did an AIMS happen? How is it that every 9 seconds a company in India becomes a victim of a ransomware attack? How it happens that every few weeks, every few months, we keep on seeing such humongous volumes of data which is made available from India for sale on the darknet. So clearly, I think we'll have to be realistic to say, look, had we had a good, strong data protection law, had we had enforced that, then I could relatively have said, look, things could be under control. But today, there is no data protection law. Today, an employee does not think twice before copying the corporate data on his pen drive or sending it to his personal email ID before walking away from the employment of that particular company.
Okay.
Today, these foreign companies are coming and targeting Indians, collecting Indians' data, but not adequately protecting the same. So ultimately, Indians have been left to become guinea pigs in a huge data laboratory. And I think adequate protection needs to be given so that the data rights of Indian data principles can be adequately protected, and the hands of the government in terms of cyber sovereignty and data sovereignty can be far more strengthened so that the Indian nation can walk out in a far more strengthened, secure and resilient manner.
Okay, let me just get in Manish Bariyar as well as Sujata Paul at this point. Thank you both of you for your very patience. While the experts have had some very different opinions on this, you of course are also divided by the political lines. But Manish Bariyar, let me straight start with what we're just discussing. Rahul Gandhi of course raised some points in the parliament. You may say he's just making up political gimmickry, but there are experts who say that Indians are becoming guinea pigs. Experts are saying that, listen, if India doesn't have a data sovereignty protection law, what protection are you talking about? Manish Bariyar, is India moving too slow on this?
Good evening, Sneha, and to my co-panelists, and thanks for having me here. So I was listening very intently to both the experts. I would say that although Mr. Pavan Duggal has all the right intentions in mind, but I think he's like taking it a bit too far. I felt I would agree more with Mr. Parthasarthi, where we understand that on the corporate side, we are doing a lot of things, and as a country also we are doing very well. But coming back to Mr. Rahul Gandhi's speech today, he was better than before.
What do you mean
I have
by
to
doing
say
very
that.
well?
But again, I would say that it was more of politicking. If you see his two major, I listened to his entire speech. Again, he was back to caste census. He was back to constitution, and it was nothing new. He was back to China. So I don't know how you would say
Manish
that
Bariyar,
it was a brilliant speech,
talking
because
about
this he
data.
has been repeating
Manish
for the
Bariyar, we are
last
talking about
5 years.
data. We are not talking about his whole speech,
Okay.
Manish.
Let's
Manish,
come
we are
back to
talking
data
about
also.
data.
But
He's
you were
made some
saying that
very
whether it is
strong
politicking or
allegations
plain
about
speech.
data that India
Absolutely.
has no data. No, when I say is he politicking, I'm talking about the part where he's spoken about data, where he says that US and China have access to data, India has
I
none.
understand. Okay, so let us look at our growth in terms of data protection law. I think both the experts talk about it, especially Mr. Pavan talk about that how we have gradually grown. But yes, I would say that, the law is already there. The law was passed in 2023. So you can't say, and it was based on GDPR, which is considered a gold standard, European laws. And that's what California to other countries, they are all following that. I think we are very close to what the European standards are. I would not say we have been able to really do that, but we are taking very strong steps towards moving to very similar to what GDPR is. Now, viewers who know about GDPR, if they read about it, that's an absolute wonderful law, which I think even Mr. Pavan would really, support that. But coming back to this data, we are not in that dire straits, as Mr. Parthasarthi also pointed out. We are moving towards that. These are draft rules. For example, let me take you that the companies who are going to really breach data laws now, there is a 250 crore kind of a penalty which has been put for them. So the message is very clear that anybody who is going to, violate data laws, either from the person side or from the company side, I think they would have to suffer the consequences. So you cannot just say that we are going to copy, other countries in terms of, we have to also look at our own business interest, balance those business interests along with, data protection law. So I think if you look at everything in isolation, that is where the real problem will come. There's a lot of geopolitics which is being played on various fronts. And our country just cannot just say that, okay, Facebook, Google, you cannot just come here and, not take data away. And you have to put all the data centers here, because those companies have to really invest a lot of money. Right now, they are not in a position to really invest that much of money. Of course, you would know. But Amazon has done it, right? Government of India, where it required, has done it. So all these credit card companies, banks and all that, they have to really put all these data locally. So I think we are moving in that direction. So you just cannot blankly criticize government for that, because the intent is very, very clear from the government side that we mean business as far as data is concerned.
No, but here's the thing, Manish Barya, even as you are making that point, let me just, Sujata, 1 minute. It's interesting. I want to bring this data out. Apparently, the largest number of downloaders of DeepSeek after US are Indians. Sujata Paul.
The fact is, Sneha, that I heard one of our experts say that it takes time, for laws to be implemented, for laws to actually work. And we are the most populous country in the world. We account for 20% of global data, and yet we are not safe. So what does this tell us about ourselves? It's all very well for the government to be talking about digitalization, but you've got to move a step forward. And what Rahul Gandhi ji said today is a fact that from 2014 to now, manufacturing has been falling, and we have, instead of being make in India, we are actually assemble in India. There is nothing wrong to if you listen to your leader of opposition, you listen to your opposition leaders, and make sure that the country becomes more secure. That is what Rahul Gandhi tried to do today. And when he was speaking, if you notice, he only spoke about the positives that can be done, because jobs are in question today. Our youngsters have been in the forefront all across the world as far as the IT revolution is concerned. And here, let us not forget what Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had said at that time, that computers would have no consequence in India. And I remember, because I come from that generation, when in 1988, we were going to various institutes to study computers. And look where we are today. So one needs to understand that when we are talking about artificial intelligence today, it works on data. It's not going to start working on its own. So when Rahul Gandhi talks about the caste census, that is important for the government to undertake. It is important for the government to at least have a census. They haven't had a census. And unless and until the 90% youth of
we'll get to census in a bit. We'll get to a census in a bit, Sujata. But let's just stick to
I'm talking about opportunities.
Let's stick to the debates.
Absolutely. And look, I'm talking about opportunities here. When we talk about 90% of Indians not getting opportunities, and let's be very clear, if we make sure that our youngsters are empowered and they know that they are at the forefront of this battle, of this revolution, so to speak, we will actually be leading the world. And you know that the US and China, if they are at the forefront, if they are talking about AI and DeepSeek, where are we at this particular point of time? We should not be talking about we are moving ahead and the government can't do everything. Well, the government has to take the lead. And I think Mr. Pavan Duggal said the same thing. It is the government which will have to lead the way, show the path to the rest of the country, and get the private players also to feel motivated enough that there will be government support so that they can undertake projects so that our youngsters are empowered and we move ahead in the field of artificial intelligence. Are we doing that? Are we protecting our data? These are two aspects which need to be considered, and the law cannot move at the pace
that's interesting that you make that, Sujata. Let me just get in Manish Barya to respond to that one particular point that you have raised before I take it to experts, because this is very interesting. Manish Barya, I know you may not, you are not the expert to ask you on this, but let's just take it at the political basis itself. Sujata says, where's the opportunity? It's interesting that India is the country with the highest AI penetrative skill set globally. India is a country of techies known across the world. You have some of your best minds who are working in US, for that matter. But we don't have an open AI or a DeepSeek equivalent. At a time when the country is looking at 2047 as a landmark year, does it need to re-envision what it really wants to focus as being a superpower?
Let me explain to you, Sneha, and also to your viewers, for you to really understand why India may not have a deep seek. And this is not a justification. This comes from very credible sources and from industry. If you look at China, they have their own Facebook, they have their own Google, they have their own Instagram, right? And it's a communist country, it's a dictatorial country. So they don't allow anybody to come there, and that means they have the entire set of data which gets generated on their local servers, and they decide what they want to really put it on. Are you trying to say we want that kind of a country for us? So the entire data, see, there is a criticism of that, we do not have data, but you have to really understand that how China has data. It has a very big population, and everything is there. They have their own YouTube.
No, Manish.
Everything.
I agree to the point that you're saying, Manish. But India does have 20% of the global data generated, Manish, which is a huge percentage. But it has only 2% of it localized and stored locally, Manish. And also, if you're saying that do we want the China model? No, that's not something that I'm propagating at all in terms of being a dictatorial country and a policy for that matter. Not at all. But just look at this. ChatGPT used around 25,000 GPUs. India's AI around 18,000. DeepSeek did it with 2,500 GPUs. I mean, this has been there in public domain for a few days. So, I mean, we don't need a China model, but just, I mean, let's just look at what we are really doing up to with it.
See, Sneha ji, we need to understand, let us take up, leave India for some time and look at other countries. Tell me, where does this OpenAI has come anywhere in this world? Right, Japan is there, South Korea is there, France is there, UK. Why they don't have, DeepSeek? We need to understand why China has it, right? I'm not trying to defend, but what I'm trying to say is a good perspective is required before questioning that India is not able to do it. We do not have to look at China in every matter, right? There are a number of things, as Mr. Parthasarathi also explained, we are good at, and we need to really leverage our strengths. We can't be very good in everything. But you look at, Economic Times today itself, every day you look at, you will find some funding in AI coming up. There are areas where we have strategic strength and we are doing very, very well. It may not be DeepSeek, but other areas of application, we are doing very well as a country.
Absolutely, I agree on that. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in the ecosystem for AI, but we are talking about what's happening globally. A last question to both of you, Manish Bariyar as well as Sujata Paul, before I go back to the experts. Manish Bariyar, here's my question to you. Well, a lot that you have said is about how AI is responding, but what Rahul Gandhi today said was two things. And is that worrying you? Does that bother you? Do you think India needs to realign itself when it comes to this? He has said two things, and we do not need to emulate China or the US or anybody for everything. But the two things that he has said. One, China has all the production data. US has all the consumption data. What data is India going to power its AI on?
See, I don't think, I'm sorry to say, but I don't think he understands how AI is working. He has been tutored in that, but then he doesn't understand how the data is being generated and how, Indian government can ask for these data if it is required. The Indian law says that whenever it requires, and that's one of the criticism of Indian government, in fact, it's not so severe as far as Europe is concerned, but Indian government has insisted that wherever data and whenever data is required, we can retrieve those data and those companies have to agree with that. So I don't really agree with what he's saying. Also, data models are being, now data is being generated even artificially by other countries. They are being trained, all these large LLMs, and I don't want to get into the technical, but I think he was not correct. When I was listening to him, I was a bit squirming what he is saying. That's why I said that his speech was not a very intelligent speech. People who understand what he was saying, they would criticize him immediately. Maybe it's good for rhetoric, but it was not correct. When it comes to production data also, we all know that China is a powerhouse as far as production is concerned, but that is just 1 second. I'll just complete in 15 seconds. That's because it is backed by government of China.
It is
not because
Sujata, give 5 seconds to Manish Bariyar. Sujata, sorry. Just give 5 seconds to Manish Bariyar. 5 seconds. Go ahead, Manish Bariyar.
So we need to understand that China is a powerhouse not because, it comes naturally. China sends its products below its cost. India is a free market. India is not China, right? We cannot compare. Now, I'm not saying that we should not be a manufacturing country. He also wrongly mentioned about the manufacturing data. Look, in 10 years' time, our manufacturing has gone up. In terms of percentage, we do very well in services. That's why the percentage has gone down. Again, he has misled the nation by telling that our manufacturing is not doing well. Make in India has made an impact.
Okay.
And it has made a very, very good environment in this country for manufacturing. We are doing very well as far as, we are trying.
Neha,
we're trying for semiconductor
Sujata
chips.
Paul,
We're trying in so many other ways.
coming.
So it was
Sujata
a
Paul,
blatant
I'll
lie
give you
what
2
he said.
minutes. Sujata Paul, go ahead.
Yes, this kind of rhetoric is really sad. And when you talk about the country, you talk about looking ahead. And I will never question my youngsters. The youth of this country have proved it earlier that they can rule the IT sector of the world. And my youngsters today are waiting for that opportunity. So when you question them and when you say that we cannot be good at everything, shame on you. And this is something that only the BJP can do. But look at the kind of data that we have, and are we
I've not questioned at all. I don't think she's be able to understand what I'm saying.
Please don't speak in between. I did not speak in between when you were speaking. Please have some manners. When we talk about our data, tell me, Sneha, are we protected? Are we really protecting our privacy? No, we are not. So the government really needs to get on its feet and start thinking about how we will protect our citizens. Plus, give our youngsters that opportunity where they can take the lead and be at the forefront of this revolution and prove it to the world that India has it in them. And our youngsters are only waiting for that opportunity. If the government makes laws, if the government comes with a project, with schemes which shows the way to the private players, believe you me, if we could have an Infosys, then we will have something which is going to take the lead in the field of artificial intelligence also. Because whether it is medicine, space exploration, or any other field, education, everywhere it is going to be artificial intelligence, which is going to be used in the coming times. And technology is moving fast. Our government needs to move really, really fast if we want to be out there and protecting our data and using it for our benefit, for our nation, and showing it to the world that we are taking the lead in it.
Manish Bariyar, not more than 5 seconds. I need to go to the
just for 10 seconds, I need to really come in. See, that's one of the reasons, because of rhetorics like these, without understanding, making comments, that the country has been rejecting Congress elections after elections.
Oh, come on. This is not about politics, is it, Sneha? I am not going to accept this. I thought you were having a cerebral discussion, and that's where it should be. The government needs to listen and make sure that our youngsters are at the forefront of this artificial intelligence revolution. That's it.
Okay, Manish and Sujata, I'm going to just shift the focus back right now to our experts. Mr. Pavan Duggal, here's my question, and everybody would be asking this. 2 questions to both of you. I'm going to make short points, short questions, short answers, and I'm going to get both of you, Mr. Parthasarathy and Pavan Duggal, because both of you have different spectrums. So let's try and get this out, what the simple questions that viewers are asking. First question, is my data protected? Forget about protection within the country. Can other countries access my data? Pavan Duggal first.
The answer to that is a crystal clear yes. Other countries and agencies in other countries can access the data of Indians which is resident on servers which are located within their respective territorial boundaries. So to say that, look, Indian data is sacrosanct and no country, no agency can access it is a factually inaccurate statement. Today, Indians are sharing all their information on cloud. Clouds are located on servers, invariably outside India, and therefore countries can use this Indian data to target Indian sovereignty, Indian nation, and the Indian population.
Shri Parthasarathy.
1 second.
I look at it this way. I think to Mr. Bariyar's statement on GDPR and other regulations, global regulations, If you look at our significant corporate sectors have adopted a lot of these particular standards, uh, global laws, all of those particular things, because we are a nation who's significantly providing a lot of services globally. So from a corporate sector perspective, I think the adoption, whether it's in financial services, whether it's in IT, whether it in healthcare and others, I would say the adoption of those particular laws and governing laws are very important. So from that aspect, when I look at it, citizens are being protected there. Is it enough? I think there's a lot more that can be done. And AI, as I said, is continuing to evolve right now. Most global countries do not have an AI law. That is one. Next element is from the way I look at it, it feels as if that somebody can just walk in any time, take away any amount of data. If that is the particular case, I think nobody would be doing financial transactions today. Any of the people who are basically doing any financial transaction or anything that they are doing on any of these particular things, I would say they would not do it. Yes, there are certain sectors which are weak, which need to be addressed, where there are challenges which we need to basically think about. But at the same time, to basically say that anything and everything in India is accessible everywhere is not a fair statement.
Okay, I'm running short of time, but very quickly, Mr. Pavan Duggal. So, yes, Manish, let me just get this round done and I'll come to you. I'll try and come to you, but just a minute. Let me just get one question done very clearly. Yeah. Mr. Pavan Duggal, very quickly, so what if China has my data, your data, and the citizens' data? What changes? Complex answer, but a minute.
Well, everything changes. It's not a question of your data and my data. It is a cumulative data of Indians when analyzed by big data sets, and huge, powerful AI algorithms can actually throw massive insights on how the Indian nation needs to be potentially targeted. What are the vulnerabilities in the Indian cyber ecosystem and the data ecosystem? And how can that vulnerabilities be exploited to prejudicially impact the security, sovereignty and integrity of India? So I think it's not just a question of I am nobody and therefore my data is of no consequence. It's about us Indians. It's about India as a nation. And it's time that India wakes up to its massive potential of protecting its data sovereignty, its cyber sovereignty, by protecting its data and personal data of its citizens.
Manish Barrier, you had a point to make very quickly. I don't have much time. I'm literally in a rush.
Yeah. I just wanted, to say that Mr. Pavan Duggal's that statement is quite misleading when he says that our data goes to everywhere in the world. See, India is very clear on that. It goes only to and it's there in the draft rules. You need to read that. Everyone needs to read that. It goes to very few select countries
draft rules,
where
Mr.
India has very good strategic tie-ups
and
where
it's
India
not
thinks it is
implemented
safe.
yet.
No, it's in the law. It's in the law. It's not about draft rules.
It is
no,
not
it's in the law. Please, Sneha ji,
it's
there in law. Please read it. I've read it.
I'm sorry.
No,
the
it's
law
not.
has still not been implemented as of now.
I would not. I'm sorry.
The law is still not implemented as of now, please.
Absolutely, but then it is there in the law.
Okay, this is an important point. Manish Barrier, make your point. I want Pavan Duggal to counter that. Manish Barrier, make your point. 5 seconds, not more than that. Manish Barrier, make your point. Manish Barrier, make your point.
That was a very misleading point which I needed to clarify. Yeah, I made my point. That was quite misleading.
I don't have more time.
Let me clarify by saying,
Pavan Duggal.
Well, quick question. India still does not have a dedicated data protection law in place now. Forget about draft rules which are not yet in place. Forget about the DPDP Act, which is still not been implemented.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm completely out of time. My director has told me a couple of times to wrap. Mr. Partha Sarthi, oh my goodness, Mr. Partha Sarthi, you also have your hands up. I really am out of time. So sorry, gentlemen, but Pavan Duggal and Shri Partha Sarthi, I really thank you for your time and your perspective. Some very important points and perspectives being made here. Thank you very much, both of you. Of course, Manish Barrier as well as Sujata Paul, thank you very much for your very feisty debate, as it were, very important to our country. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, news and updates.